Hey, what is up YouTube? Kolst here, and we are back with another card review for Showdown in the Badlands, and this time we're going to be covering Druid, a very exciting set because it's a bunch of dragons. People love dragons. But before we get started there, I'm announcing that I am doing a giveaway. I'm going to be announcing the winner, by the way, very soon, probably like tonight or in the next few hours or something. It is for a BlizzCon collection. This includes like just a lot of random goodies. There's some Hearthstone things. There's some packs, I think a signature, stuff like that. I'm not sure exactly, but it says here what's in there. This is courtesy of Blizzard, by the way. And if you want to be entered, just make sure you subscribe to the channel, comment below what your favorite card is from this new set. It doesn't have to be in this reveal, it could be anything. Before we get on to Druid as well, this is also going to be revealed the last neutral card. I mentioned there was one unrevealed neutral card. They did finally reveal it. We'll go over it quickly though. This is Reno Lone Ranger. This is 8 mana. Hero card in neutral. Battlecry, if you have no duplicates, so it has the Reno condition. Empty the enemy board, limit to 1 minion for a turn. And what it means, basically emptying the enemy board, that is like a silence removal. This is a one-sided twisting nether with silence. Like, it's crazy, crazy powerful. And also, you get these hero powers, which are, they're all like deal 2 damage and they get bonus effects as well. Basically, you get a very good hero power as well. And as well, because you limit your opponent to 1 minion for a turn, they can't really put any counter pressure on you. If you have the ability to then, remove any single minion, you basically win, essentially, right? It is only for 1 turn, so they can flood you afterwards, but that should be all the time you really need to solidify your position, right? Not going to go into too much detail again, because it's very likely this just isn't in Arena, because hero cards are traditionally banned. They might, there's always a chance they just decide to not do it anymore. Jiraxis is in despite being a hero card, although it was kind of grandfathered in, so it's a little bit of an exception, so... As of now, we still don't know actually whether this card will be in Arena. If it is in Arena, it's going to be very draftable because it's an 8 mana card, and even if you have duplicates, there's a reasonable chance you won't have duplicates by the time you can play it anyway, right? So you would still take it. You definitely wouldn't want to have like 5 duplicates or something, but you would still take it just for the upside if you can hold on for that. Because if you play this card, you're very likely just going to win. And by the way, this thing even clears things like Sargeras, the portal thing, so like it even beats stuff like that. It's just very, very strong. So with that, that is it. The last neutral card revealed. Of course, you can go back to the neutral reveal if you want to see the rest of those, but let's move on to Druid. So the first one we have here is Risteaza. 8 mana, 8/8 dragon. Again, a legendary, again with the Reno condition. If your deck has no duplicates, summon the Purified Dragon Nest. So the Purified Dragon Nest is another one of those things that takes up a slot on your board, but it's at the start of your turn, discover a dragon that costs 4 or less. Now, we're going to be talking about some of these other dragons, but there are some really good tempo dragons at 4 mana, which would then be free with this, but also, obviously, you can get Alexstrasza, Ysera, there's a lot of really big dragons. So this is, again, a very, very powerful effect, because it's essentially generating tempo as well. If this thing sticks for, more than a turn or two, you're going to win, essentially. It's going to be very impossible for people to do anything. So very, very powerful effect. Same things I talked about for Reno with, it being a late game card that you don't even necessarily need to be Highlander for it to work. Talking about these tempo dragons now, next up we have here is Desert Nest Matron. 4 mana, 3/5 dragon, taunt Battlecry. If you're holding a dragon, refresh 4 mana crystals. This activates some of the other dragon synergies, which are going to be relevant, so that makes it a pretty good card. A 4 mana 3/5 obviously sends in Shield Master, not a great card by itself, but if you're holding a dragon, which is not going to be that hard to do, this is a 0 mana 3/5, and then it's insanely powerful. And being able to just activate the other dragon synergies as well is going to make it very valuable, so unless you're late in the draft without dragons, the way it tends to work in Arena is that you have an offering bonus for the new cards, and there are a lot of these new cards that are dragons, so it's going to be very likely you can actually do this, so that's going to make it very valuable. If you're late in the draft and you don't have any dragons, don't value it as high, but other than that, I think you're going to want to draft this a lot. Next up, we have Rehydrate. 2 mana nature spell, restore 7 health, quick draw, refresh 2 mana crystals. 2 mana restore 7, that is good for a healing card. I mean, it's like 4 healing card, right? You just typically don't want to draft these super, super highly. But you know, this would be an upside to have in Druid, just because if you discover it, you always get the quick draw, assuming you're able to play it when you discover it, and then it's just 0 mana heal 7, so you can heal your face. You can also actually heal a minion if you happen to be able to do that on the turn that you draw or discover it as well. So it's a pretty reasonable effect in that way. I think it's good, and you'd be happy to draft one of these if you are trying to play a slow deck and just, you know, you expect the healing to help you, but otherwise you probably just wouldn't want to draft this. It's more like the thing that you would really prefer to discover. Just a nice thing to have available for you in that class. Things you might draft more though, we have Dragon Tales, a 2 mana epic spell. Now, epics tend to be pretty uncommon, but I'm kind of guessing that this is going to be a common rarity. They've been doing this, especially for Druid cards, because Druid tends to need help in Arena, and they actually make a lot of epics common, so you might see this a lot more than you would expect. But anyway, it's a choose one, get 2 random dragons that cost 5 or less, or get 2 that cost more than 5. So it is 2 mana do nothing, and you don't get any mana cheat, but some of those tempo dragons, if you choose the lower option, would actually help with the tempo, and I think you might want to do that a reasonable amount of time, particularly if you play it on turn 2. You would just be looking for those early dragons. But obviously later on as well, you can just go for the big dragons. You can even get something like Risteaza, for example, if you happen to have that active, right? Otherwise, it's going to be a brick, which might actually hurt you. But if you can activate that, then it's, you know, a really big high roll to get later on as well. And yeah, essentially, you know, Dragon Roar is obviously a really good card in Arena, and this is a better Dragon Roar because the problem is that sometimes you would want big things and you hit Fairy Dragons, or you'd want just tempo and you hit 9 drops, right? This thing lets you actually choose what you want, and there's the potential to choose one synergy. Talking about cards that are epic but actually common, the 4 mana 4/4 that you get to choose both, that's also a common in Arena right now, so you can get 4 dragons for 1 card as well potentially. So yeah, I think it's definitely going to be a very good card, and you're going to potentially see it a lot in spite of the crystal on it, and yeah, it's going to be a defining card for Druid, being able to activate all these dragon synergies. Talking about being able to activate dragon synergies, the next one that ensures you'll be able to do that as well. Take to the Skies, 3 mana common spell, draw 2 dragons, give them +1/+1. So the new flavor of Arcane Intellect, where you just get a random bonus effect that doesn't even make that much sense in this case, but hey, the upside of this for sure. Well, the downside is that you need to actually have drafted dragons to make this work, so that might limit how many of these you can draft. It might be really hard to draft more than like 1 or 2 of these, for example, but assuming you have the dragons, it's really good because you're getting a buff, which is nice. It offsets the cost of paying 3 mana do nothing. But as well, if you're drawing more than 1 dragon, if you have dragon synergies that require other dragons, you'll at least be able to activate one of them, right? And it can also pull duplicates out of your deck to activate your Risteaza and stuff like that. So this is a good way of drawing cards. You're going to want to potentially be a little bit careful how many of these and Dragon Tales, you know, you don't want to draft too many things that just don't do anything tempo-wise, but at the same time, you'll be able to get away with it if you have 4 mana 3/5 that gives you the 4 mana back, effectively 0 mana 4/5 and 3/5 and other things. So, yeah, I think it's a pretty good card draw, but, you know. Next up, we have Cactus Construct. 1 mana nature spell, discover a 2-cost minion, summon a 1/2 copy of it. I'm not sure exactly. There's so many 2-cost minions. I'm sure there are particular high rolls you can get that would be good. It is limited a little bit by the fact that obviously there's way more neutral 2-drops than our class 2-drops anyway, so you're going to be hitting neutral options a lot off of this. That's not necessarily great. Having said that, this is already a 1 mana 1/2. It still has Discover. You could still hit Zephyrs or something, for example, for potential real high rolls. And then you're also getting a 1 mana 1/2, right? And if it has Death Rattle or something, if you get like a Nerubian Egg, this is just insane, right? Because Nerubian Egg would be like a 3-drop if it was a 1/2, right? So you'd be getting potentially like a 3-drop. So there are definitely high rolls you can get, and that's going to make it just very, very solid because this fills in a lot of mana. You get effectively a 1-drop and a 2-drop out of this all the time, essentially. And yeah, so it's just a very efficient card and potential to discover high rolls. You can't get spells, you're only getting minions, so you're not getting like a lot of the better cards would be spells. You can't get like the new Dragon Roar or something, but it's just a very efficient card, so you'd be happy to draft it a lot. Next up is Splish Splash Whelp. 2 mana 2/1 dragon battle cry. If you're holding a dragon, gain an empty mana crystal. This is an interesting one. This effect doesn't really do much later on, obviously, but if you have this on turn 2 and it's active, you probably just win because you probably have those 4 mana dragons and you're going to be ramping right into them. This is just going to give you, just a dominating position. And assuming you're going to have the dragons early, assuming you're going to have a lot of dragons, I mean, this is just, this will be active most of the time, right? There's a risk it won't work, but I think the upside of this is going to just create such blowout games if you have it active that I think it's worth the downside of it maybe just not working or not working quite early enough sometimes. I think it's just really, really good in that case. So, well, first of all, you can get this off Dragon Tails as well if you coin it. You could actually coin that if you wanted to, or if you had this and that. Like, there's a lot of upside. It has the obvious downside that it's really bad if it just doesn't work or you draw it later on. But I think it'd be worth having one just for the upside, assuming you have dragons. You might not want to draft one like super early, just because you wouldn't want to have to get multiple of them and then not have other dragons that you're actually ramping into. But I still think it's going to be good. Next up is Spinetail Drake, another dragon, this time a 4 mana 5/4 battle cry. If you're holding a dragon, deal 5 damage to an enemy minion. That's just absolutely insane tempo, right? It has the upside that if you don't have any other dragons, it's still at least, it's still a 4 mana 5/4. It's not that bad, right? That isn't great anymore, honestly, is the funny thing, but like it's still fine. I mean, and then being able to essentially, on curve, that kills anything. Nothing has more than 5 health early on, pretty much. So you just get to remove any minion you want early on. And even later on, that effect is still really good. That's still going to be mostly an assassinate most of the time. So just a very, very powerful card. Another one of those things you'd really be looking for, potentially getting off of the Dragon Tails if you played early to catch up on the early tempo that you lost, or if you played Take to the Skies as well. This is the kind of stuff that's going to enable those kind of strategies to work early on. Next up, we have Dragon Golem. 7 mana 3/4 dragon with taunt. Battle cry, summon a copy of this for each dragon in your hand. So theoretically, you can hand buff this, although I don't think there's that much in Druid that really does that. And then, obviously, if you have a whole lot of dragons, this would become really good. The thing is that I think realistically, especially because some of those dragons you probably want to, the 4-drops, like you want to play, a lot of the early ones you are going to want to play, I think it's just going to be hard to actually have enough dragons because you aren't drafting, you're not choosing everything in your deck. You're going to have some dragons, but you're going to want to play the dragons and you're just not going to have that many on turn 7. Definitely if you're high rolling dragons, if you have a lot, this will still be fine, but I think in a lot of decks this is just going to be underwhelming, so you're not going to value it nearly as highly. But if you're really going full dragons, sure, it's going to be good, but I think it's going to be a lot riskier than the other ones. Last up, we have Fi the Setting Sun. 9 mana 4/12 dragon with rush, lifesteal, and taunt. Costs 1 less for each dragon you've summoned this game. So it has the upside that it's always playable. It starts at 9. It's not like you need to have any dragons to make it playable. There are just better things you can do late game. So, you wouldn't really want to spend 9 mana on this. The risk would be that it only heals you for 4 and then it gets silence removed or heart removed or something. And then it just doesn't heal you anymore. And then it's just not doing enough relative to other late game cards nowadays. But this is the kind of thing that, it's pretty realistic to think you could probably play this for 5 or 6 mana. You might even get to play it on turn 5 or turn 6 somewhat often. And then it's just, it's really good then, right? Even if it gets removed, you only paid 6 mana or whatever. So it's going to be really strong. And obviously, rush, lifesteal, taunt, all 3 of those help you to stay alive if that's what you want. And all these dragon decks are just going to want to stay alive to keep dropping bombs on people. So it does exactly what you would want a late game card to do. It should be very good in that way. Druid is one of the classes that doesn't have that many good legendaries either. They don't have a really good Titan compared to the other ones. It is powerful, but it's just 10 mana, which makes it really hard. So it's actually going to be a lot more pickable in Druid than it might be in other classes for that reason as well. So you might actually take it a reasonable amount. So with that, that is it for this card review. Again, reminder, we're doing the BlizzCon collection giveaway thanks to Blizzard. So comment in the comment section below your favorite card of the new set that you've seen so far. If you want to do that, it doesn't have to be one I've even done the card review yet for, by the way. I'll be posting the remaining card reviews over the next couple of days, but I need to re-record some. This is a re-recording too, so it might take a little while, but make sure to do that. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and like the video to be fully available for that giveaway. But yeah, thanks a lot for hanging out. We'll see you all in the next one.